Welcome to the Investing Podcast presented by Tusk Media. This is Outsider Trading, an audio and video deep dive into the people, places, and things that we find most interesting in the market.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Investing Podcast. I'm joined here this morning by Ben Nye. I am Garrett Palmer, and we have some pretty interesting information regarding Mylan and drug pricing. First, we're going to talk about Trump's press conference yesterday about wanting to control drug pricing. So Ben, lead us into that.
Right, so yesterday Trump had his big press conference, and what kind of stole the headlines was firstly obviously all of the issues with the BuzzFeed news that wasn't news,
right.
And even if it was actually news, it wasn't news,
right?
Because it's been out there since October. But then one of the other big stories was that he came out and said that drug companies are murdering the American people.
I'm surprised he's being so exaggerant. He's never done that before.
Yeah, Trump is not one to be hyperbolic, so you got to sit up and take notice when he is.
Yeah.
But in this case, he does have a good point, and we can see that in a lot of the drug price increases. It's very much a consolidated industry. There's not much price transparency. If a doctor says you need this drug, the doctor doesn't really know what it costs. I mean, I can speak from experience. My dad's a doctor. He doesn't know what drug prices cost. We got drugs for our my grandmother, his mom, and he was shocked by how much it was. And these were generic drugs, not brand name, not still under patent protection. So it is an issue, and these companies have generally performed extremely well in the market. Really nice, steady earnings growth, the type of stuff that you look for really in a staple company. But we're going to tell you a little bit today about how not all of these companies are staple companies, and that you can see some substantial earnings volatility in the non-GAAP number in the coming years.
All right, and we're going to hit specifically on Mylan today.
Yeah.
About their CEO and kind of a edgy past or edgy way of becoming CEO and maintaining that position.
Right. Well, I mean, honestly, I don't know how edgy it ends up being when you compare it to just. I think that's a lot of times how business is done. But we'll talk a little bit about that. Taking a step back on what Mylan actually is. So Mylan's a generic drug manufacturer. Of course, they were big in the news this last fall because they raised EpiPen prices again. But this wasn't news. They bought the rights to the EpiPen for $57, and when the EpiPen was being sold for $57. This was back in 2007. And then since that time, now we are in a situation where EpiPen pricing is $600.
Yeah, it's quite an increase.
10 times. So it's like, how can you not have earnings growth when
Right.
when you raise a price by 10 times? And EpiPen is actually under patent protection. Even though the drug itself is about 100 years old, it's still under patent protection. The reason it's under patent protection is because of the cap. They have a cap, which is a mechanical device, and their competition has been rejected because they don't have the Mylan cap is imperative to the device in an emergency. You might not know how the cap operates, so it's important that you only have the Mylan product. Of course, Mylan probably has a bevy of these kind of technicalities that they'll just keep rolling out, and this EpiPen will be under perpetual patent protection under existing law. I mean, this is just how it works. This is how they've been able to maintain patent protection for so long. Of course, they're spending a lot of R&D. We're going to pretend that Mylan actually developed this, even though they acquired it, and the reason for growth is not R&D. It is actually just raising prices. So that's an important point, number one. And that is what Trump is apparently going to go after. But you wanted to talk a little bit about the CEO's past.
Yes, yeah. You were telling me about that yesterday, and I was...
Right, and I was looking into it because a lot of times what I've been looking to do, and we've been looking to do as a firm, is look for companies that have not been so helped by the government and enabled by the government and really taken advantage of the American people. So I was looking at Mylan, maybe this is because Teva, I'm not sold that they're not taking advantage. They're under criminal investigation with the DOJ. So is Mylan actually, but I was wondering if there was more going for Mylan than I had thought. So I was looking a little bit about management, seeing if I could trust them. So let's go a little bit about Mylan CEO Heather Bresch. She's the daughter of current West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin has also a large political past. He was also governor of the state. She first got the job, Heather did, at Mylan after her dad had a chat with the then CEO Mylan Bushkar at a West Virginia basketball game in 1992. So she got a job as a clerk after graduating college at West Virginia.
Kind of sounds like a Bill Clinton on the plane with the Attorney General kind of situation.
It kind of does, and you know that's kind of like, I think most dads would do that. You know,
Right.
if they were lucky enough to sit down with the CEO of a huge company, and you know they'd probably say, you know, my kid's looking for a job, can you help her out?
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO would say, well, you know, yeah, we'll do
Sure,
what we can,
yeah.
especially when this guy's a politician.
At least hire on somewhere
Right.
along the lines.
So I mean, that's not too egregious, but just bear that in mind because it starts a pattern of these things that go forward. In 2003, she had worked her way up to be part of Mylan's government relations division. Yes, that is actually true. They want to foster relations with the government.
So still legitimate, nothing too weird.
No, nothing too weird. You do think that if Mylan's pouring all this money into a division just to do deals with the government, you know, they're looking for something.
Yeah,
They're looking for something. So she was instrumental in developing Medicare Part D. Medicare Part D is often obviously the prescription drug aspect of Medicare, and I'm pretty sure that she didn't do a deal that was disfavorable to Mylan at
Right,
one
yeah,
time.
of course not.
And it is becoming one of the more unaffordable entitlements in America. I think that's a nonpartisan fact.
Mm-hmm.
But then it starts to get a little bit worse. In 2008, it came out that on her resume, she claimed that she had an MBA from West Virginia. Now, she didn't. She had completed 24 of 48 credits. But, so at that point, Joe Manchin was the then governor of West Virginia. Well, he had a little chat with the university, and surprise, surprise, she was subsequently awarded an EMBA. And excuse me, it's 26 of 48 credits, so a little more than half. Yeah. But then after that, the faculty kind of stepped up and said, you know, this is ridiculous. We're not going to be doing favors just because her dad is governor of the state. West Virginia President Michael Garrison came out, and he said, you know, he actually resigned because the faculty said, you know, we can't work essentially under a regime where this guy's president of the university. So he resigned. Some other of the leadership team at West Virginia University resigned.
And she kind of just went in there and blew it up, didn't she?
Yeah.
Just relying on a resume.
Michael Garrison was actually then a former consultant and lobbyist for Mylan. So it's all kind of incestuous. This whole deal. And so we take a look back and say, okay, well, what's the path forward for Mylan now? We see adjusted EPS has grown substantially from $1.61 in 2010 to $4.74 in 2016. Revenue's grown from $5.5 billion to $11 billion. And that's substantial growth. It's showing revenue growth, which has doubled. Earnings per share, which they've had leverage on. Then you look at GAAP EPS. And that has gone from 68 cents in 2010 to 91 cents expected in 2016. So not the same amount of growth, even though they're raising these prices. Year-end stock price has gone from 21. It closed 2015 at 54, closed 2016 at $38. So Mylan is now in this situation where it trades at a very cheap valuation relative to non-GAAP EPS. Trades at about 7 to 8 times earnings. Compared to GAAP EPS, it's extremely expensive. And it's not showing that same nice, steady growth. But even more than that, you start looking at management and you think, well, what has driven the stock price here? What has driven the fundamentals to where we are now? And will that continue in the future? And for the life of me, it's difficult to see that continuing into the future. Therefore, I expect that we may have seen the highest GAAP EPS. I think there's a better than 50% chance we've seen the highest GAAP EPS that we'll see at Mylan for 15, 20 years.
Do you think that Trump will be successful, or I guess successful according to him, in leveling off like EpiPen prices specifically to Mylan?
It's a good question. I think it'll be difficult to continue to push forward higher prices. Will he be able to knock them down? That's a good question. A lot of the Republicans in Congress say that we don't want, they're against negotiating on drug prices. However, I do think that what the media isn't given enough credit for is Trump's willingness to just completely upend the status quo and shame people into doing what he wants. He's done that a number of times and has managed to kind of move people closer to him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. It's also worthy to note that Mylan is under criminal investigation by the DOJ for drug price collusion in the generic space. So you also have that headwind, which makes it difficult for them to do much. At the very least, I expect them to have someone in the government placed into the company to kind of oversee what's going on. That's what they're doing at Teva for their issues in Eastern Europe. So I would say that, the outlook for Mylan is murky. I think that the path of least resistance for the stock is down. And boy, it might be worth buying at some point, but I cannot see that at the current time.
All right, everybody. That is Mylan. Rocky road ahead for them, and hopefully we'll be back later today with bank previews, bank earning previews, and thanks for watching.
Tusk Media is a subsidiary of Narwhal Capital Management. Ratings and reviews of Tusk Media content are not to be construed as endorsements of opinions, analysis, or services offered by Tusk or its parent company. The opinions and predictions shared here are our professional beliefs at the time of publication. We are not under duress from any of the corporate entities mentioned. This is not a solicitation to take any particular action. Although we are investment advisors, this information should not be considered investment, legal, or tax advice. We strive to be as impartial, insightful, and accurate as possible. We base our opinions, analysis, and calculations on information we believe to be reliable, but we cannot guarantee its accuracy. We can, however, guarantee that our opinions will sometimes be flat out wrong due to a variety of factors. Employees and clients of Narwhal Capital Management may or may not hold positions in the securities detailed and may or may not hold these positions in the future. A full list of all securities purchased, sold, or held during the 12 months preceding the date of this publication can be provided upon request. Unless otherwise noted, all data accessed via MarketWatch or the Bloomberg terminal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. A copy of Narwhal's Form ADV is available at the SEC's website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov, or from Narwhal upon written request.